welcome to prompt number 4 of the 642 Things to Draw series. Today's prompts are a string quartet and an ottoman. Alright, it's gonna be interesting. Alright, so getting into this prompt, I just started out with sketching out what I thought an ottoman looked like because I wanted to start with that instead. So I just drew a few different options. I tried to make a little round quilted top one. Then I tried combining the ottoman with the string quartet by making it look sort of like a violin was what I was going for, and I was okay with that idea, but I wasn't loving it. Then I just drew some string quartet instruments. So the first one is supposed to be like a bass, and the next one is supposed to be a violin. I'm pretty sure those are the things in the string quartet, but I'm not positive. So this is definitely something that I ended up looking up later to make sure that I was accurately representing a string quartet, at least as best as I knew how. Next, I thought of just someone sitting on an ottoman playing an instrument, a string quartet, and I thought maybe I'd put the rest of the string quartet in with this character who is definitely misproportioned in relation to that ottoman, but I wasn't loving that idea. So I went back to this open ottoman thing and thought maybe I could put a string quartet within an ottoman, sort of like a music box. That's the idea I went with. This idea started out innocent enough, but as I'm sure you're able to see while I'm lining it, I sort of changed it and made it a little more gruesome. So instead of just having a string quartet within an ottoman, I decided that, yeah, we're gonna have a couple characters in this quartet fighting. And they're fighting over what instrument they get to play because sometimes they just don't always want to play the same instruments. So today in this fight we have our two ladies fighting over what instruments they get to play, and once I start coloring this drawing you'll be able to see quite how gruesome it gets. In the top left corner of this ottoman we have one of our male characters who's very upset and just doesn't want his violin injured in this fight. This strange fight over what instrument we get to play today for this quartet group. He just doesn't want his violin hurt, and I think that's kind of precious. So yeah, these women are very, very angry with each other, and they're fighting because they just want to play a different instrument than they used to, and neither of them can agree with each other. So things got a little physical. Then over in the bottom right corner we have my favorite character, this wonderful gentleman who is very, very upset because his violin has been broken. It's been a casualty in this fight. His violin didn't ask for this. He didn't ask for this treatment, but he's just broken now. No more violin. I just love his little worried face. It's definitely my favorite part of this entire illustration that went from an innocent, neat idea to very, very weird, which I guess is kind of my aesthetic. And yes, there is an ink smudge over on that right corner, but I figured out how to hide it later, and I don't know if it was the best idea, but I did it. As I started to color in this drawing, I realized there was going to be an issue, sort of, that I haven't really experienced yet using markers, and it's just all the tiny little detailed areas that I needed to get into. And yes, I do enjoy Copic markers and their brush nibs, because they let you get really small, fine lines and details. But even with that, there are just some areas on this picture that it was really hard to color in, so I definitely went outside the lines a few times and did my best to correct them later, but I think it's small enough that you can't really tell. It's still something I would like to work on, is just being able to work smaller so things look nice and the color stays within the lines that I want them to. So when I was coloring this in, I wanted to make sure the characters looked very fancy, and something that I sort of see as a more fancy dress, I guess, without it being completely black tie or white tie or whatever those terms are, the nice fancy dress and look and stuff. I wanted to color them with dark colors, so that's why I put both of these women in jewel tones, this sort of green teal color and purple color, and I put the gentleman in dark gray colors, and I just thought that it made them look a little bit more professional, I guess, that they're doing this nice fancy event, and I thought it added some nice contrast to sort of the actions of the characters, because normally when you're dressed up very fancy like this, you are well behaved and professional, and there's just a certain way that you're really supposed to act. And the characters are definitely not acting that way, and I like the contrast that it adds into this piece, because we have a very gruesome scene, and everyone looks so well dressed for it, though. And to be fair, everyone is sort of better dressed than they really should be at this point. When I was starting to sketch this, I thought it would be more important to make sure they looked nice and fancy, but didn't think about how if there's been this fight, they're probably going to have more rips in their clothes. So that's something that I will be focusing on more in future drawings if I decide to go a sort of gruesome, weird route like this again. Just gotta work on changing up clothing and fabric. Now, when I started to color the inside of this box, I wanted to make it purple because this dark purple color just seems sort of regal to me. And I also want to make sure the inside of this ottoman sort of had that accent color. So that's why I made the outside of it a more like neutral brown, because I just figure most ottomans are probably neutral colored. So that's why I added the purple on the inside to add another element of contrast between this neutral brown color you would sort of find in pretty much any living room. But this purple inside makes it seem a little bit extra special inside. It's definitely extra special because we have a string quartet living in this ottoman. So I assume maybe this would be in a giant's house, and these are people that he has kidnapped from the regular real world, and they're his string quartet that he can just open his ottoman and they're just there to play for him. Normally, at least. Today, they've decided they want to fight and argue instead. And I guess that could still provide some entertainment, but it might not be the musical entertainment he was looking for. So trying to get this marker into all these small areas and details was sort of a challenge, because blending was hard with all the small areas. So you can see that bottom of the box, I just sort of put down a layer and accepted what would happen. Because I then got this idea that, hey, this is a gruesome fight. We should probably add in some details to make it look gruesome. And I figured adding those details in later, well, that would help with the sort of streakiness of the markers, and it would help cover it up. So after I finished the details on the ottoman, that's what I went ahead and did. I added all these extra details into this little fight scene. And yes, this ottoman that I'm coloring in is inspired from one in real life that I have seen and see very, very often. So on to my probably favorite part of the coloring aspect of this drawing that my camera decided it didn't like, so it pretty much deleted all of it, was adding in all the blood splatters. So it really adds to the scene. I think it just gave that extra detail of creepy, gruesome goriness that this picture just needed. And I figured, oh, cool, I'm done. Oh, wait, there's an ottoman in a background, and we should give it a background. And there's that big ink smudge, and I wanted to make sure that was covered up. So I was like, oh, I'll make a black background, but that's boring. So I'll add a black, streaky background to make it look sort of like those action lines from a comic book. And I definitely need to practice this more, but I kind of like how it turned out. I know it's not the best, but I'm still pretty happy with it. So yeah, that's sort of this creepy, weird drawing of a string quartet and an ottoman. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this weird prompt. Thanks so much for watching my video, guys. I will see you in the next one, and it might be just as weird. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Do you want to see more shenanigans? Then check out these suggestions on your screen. Thanks so much for watching. Check back soon for some more shenanigans. Bye!